we're calling this the social media episode, guys. Joining me on the podcast today, we have Chris from Rock Metal Fan Struggles. How are you doing, Chris?
Living the dream. How are you?
I'm happy. I'm so glad to be talking to you for the second time. We went live a few months ago, and I had such a good time chatting with you. I definitely wanted to have you on the podcast and continue the conversation, and you've only grown since then. So we have been liking and saving and sharing and following, and the account has totally exploded. How is everything in your world since everything has gotten so much bigger?
It's been well. It's funny when we talked. So many different things were going on in my life. I was living in a totally different apartment. So going through all that. I was actually on vacation in Greece, and I forgot how big the account was back then. I would want to say it was around 20 or 30,000. But yeah, things kind of exploded we could definitely talk about a few reasons why, but it's been great. Have met a lot of new people, a lot of great people, definitely have had some funny instances, with a wider audience, but overall it's been a blast, and showing my face a lot more, which has been definitely scary, but overall fun. It's just a good time. I've really been enjoying it, and considering this is towards the end of my third year doing this, I never thought, there'd be such an explosion after the page was relatively stagnant for, I'd say, at least 9-10 months.
That's awesome. And that's so exciting. And I didn't know that you've been doing it for 3 years. So that means your page reached me probably, I'd say I've been watching you, aware of you for about 8-9 months, I would say. So that's pretty exciting, in the social media world, to keep on going and to stay inspired and keep it going because, look at where you are now. And I remember your account was right where mine was, I think a little bit more. And now you've doubled or tripled your followers. And I'm just now doing reels kind of myself, and my account stayed the same. So kudos to you. And I don't get jealous of people. I just get happy and excited for them. You have completely exploded, and it is so fun to watch. And I really love it. I'm your biggest fan. I really am.
I really appreciate that. And, I almost think, because I think I followed you first, and I think you were bigger than me. And, I think adapting your page, it goes a long way. And I also think there's a lot of luck that comes to it. So I can pinpoint where exactly I was struggling. I know for a fact that I was shadow banned, which people say isn't a thing. It is 100% a thing. I know down to the post. And when that happened, there's just certain things that Instagram doesn't like. And I thought the meme I made was hilarious. That's what I had started with, but whatever, it had gotten reported. So that's why when I mentioned before, I went about 10 months of relatively no growth to declining. And at one point I was kind of losing the passion for it. And it's funny too, because when I see a page like yours, I was in my mind, I was like, you provide so much value. And it's I've done a few interviews with artists like Saving Abel. But you know what? It wasn't necessarily, to me, it took so much prep that I was like, I can't do anything else other than this. It was hard for me. So, when I see a page like yours, I'm like, you provide so much value. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just making memes. And then it just started evolving into, all right, Instagram came out with Reels. Maybe I'll, kind of dip my toe in that water and get out of my comfort zone. And that's when things definitely started changing, as Instagram is, trying to compete with TikTok. They want creators to make a lot of Reels. But having said that, it's not even that simple, because I even this year have gone some ups and downs with that as well, where sometimes too much is actually hurting your reach, and actually Instagram scales back on it.
That is something that I get afraid of myself, because the experts tell you to do 2-3 a day. I've seen times where you've done I feel like there's times, and this may be just, the time it gets to me, but there have been some days when I think I was just I'm always happy for you. I always, I want to explain it properly. But there were a few days I opened my phone and I was like, oh my God, like you put up another one. How are you doing that? Like how? How? And I'm like, oh my God, that's a great reel. Like that's a really good idea. And then I would like keep working, open up my phone a few hours later and be like, oh my God, he did another one. It's great. And like, it's all great. And I just like batch, like I made like 4 or 5 last night, in like an hour. So are you like, what is your schedule like for creating all these?
Yeah, no, so it's funny.
It is,
I learned
yeah, it really is so funny. And I never talk over guests, but I will say again, you were so impressive for like being able to put out as much quality content, and it's hilarious and it's great and it's relevant, and you're just a bull with it. You're a bull.
I really appreciate it, and I feel like I've definitely slowed down the quantity. So what I've done, so I didn't know about batching, right? Before this. So what I would do is as soon as the inspiration hit me, regardless what time of the day, I would just drop everything I was doing and I would just record the reel. And that inspiration would come from sometimes interactions in comment sections, popular trending audios that I would see. And I'm like, wow, that would be really funny if it related to me. So, taking those audios, making them relevant to our world. So yeah, at first it was very spontaneous, and I hit a wall in my first month where I had been added to a list, whatever, to do Reels Play, the bonus program through Instagram. And they said it's up to 150 reels in a month. So I'm like, I have to hit 150 reels to try to get this maximum bonus. And I was only doing the reels based on inspiration. And there was a huge quality control issue. At least to me, there was, where I was like, okay, it's 2:00. That means, I got to use what I recorded this morning, not a previous morning, because it's too old now. Or I even have to like try to do one now. Or if it's, at night and it hits me, it's like, all right, like as soon as I'm done with dinner, I need to record this. And this is going in my 9 a.m. slot. So I did that a while. And then you see a lot of influencers who like provide like self-help, and they talk about batching. So that's when I started taking advantage of that. So I try to be consistent. I would say what's really interesting is my most successful month happened while I was on vacation. I was doing maybe 1 reel a day. A lot of them were scenic. So they were in Greece, like with me in the background. I'm sure that helps with the algorithm. But again, very minimal. And I had 1 reel that absolutely it's stupid to me still that it took off. I think it's close to 8 million views. But it was literally it was me and my sister's boyfriend lip syncing The Reason by Hoopastank, because we heard it outside in Greece. And I was like, you know what? I need a reel today. This is the next day, add the official audio to it. And it just takes off. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because there's some reels that I feel like I spend hours upon hours on, sometimes like days thinking about. I post it and nothing happens. And this one was literally, it was a joke. We're having some beers, smoking some cigars, and this came on. I gave the phone to my sister and I was like, hey, record this. And it just happened. So that month was really great, doing 1 reel a week. Then I was like, all right, I had a taste of a little success, hit something like 10 million views total for all the reels. So then I went up to like 78 reels in a month, which was exhausting. And the results were nowhere near as good. I had maybe 2 million views total. So, it's a game. It's still a game that I'm trying to adjust to. I come from a data background. So, looking at these numbers now, a few months later, because this was back in August, September, I'm trying to go less quantity, more quality. But at the same time, I don't know if that strategy would have worked for me when I first started with reels at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's, so much to unpack. But one thing.
I know, sorry, that's a lot.
Yeah, no. And it's so funny. I was going to talk about like your background and your history, and I still do want to talk about that, but we just jumped in because we're both really passionate about it. So let's keep going. So we're going to keep on going. So one thing I wanted to circle back to at the very beginning, and then I think there's 8 other things. But one thing that I find really challenging slash funny slash fine, it's our industry and I love it, is that trending audio is not rock or metal. And so there's this girl I follow and I love her and she's so hot and I love everything she does. And she's like, rock metally, and I just like love her account. And she did this cute Dolly Parton reel. And I was like, that's cute. I want to do that. Or excuse me, it wasn't Dolly Parton. It was Shania Twain. I'm thinking about dressing up as Dolly Parton for a Christmas party on Friday. So Dolly Parton brain. But yeah, I thought it was the cutest thing in the entire world. And people were not entertained. And it was super funny. Like, I made it, I made the whole connotation for it, like rock metal, like, I made it about like going to a rock metal show or something like that. I forget what, but the comments were hilarious and I can take it. It was fine. But people were like, stay on topic, brother. It was super funny. I showed this to my girl. I showed the comments to my girlfriend when I was hanging out with her. And the Shania Twain one was, what was it? What? So you're Brad Pitt. That don't.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I know that one.
You're Brad Pitt. That don't impress me much. Something like that. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But then the comments were like, "So what? You're like cringe now." And every time I see my girlfriend now, we're like, "What? So you're like cringe now because we think it's super funny." But it's kind of. Kind of works against us that all like trending audio is not rock or metal, right? Isn't that kind of a challenge?
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because when you do trend with a trending audio and you get some, your diehard fans, they will definitely come after you for irrelevant content. And like the amount of times I've seen cringe, like I feel like I'm a king of that at this point. But I'm not gonna lie, I took that personally early on, and I was like, "Oh man!" But then I don't know, I just got more comfortable, and like, if it is that to you, then I don't really care. You don't have to follow. And the response and all the views and the total followers increase. So I was like, "All right, so there are people who like this." But going back to the trending audio thing, it's very hard, and it's especially difficult when there finally is a rock song that trends, because that like Master of Puppets right this year with Stranger Things was huge. So obviously like I jumped on that. I think I literally made a reel about someone hearing Master of Puppets and discovering Metallica, and like the elder metalhead giving them the Master of Puppets vinyl and saying like, listen to the rest of this. They're not just like a one-hit wonder, which got a positive response. And then other people were like, oh, people just discover them from Stranger Things. Like, so what? So I think with balancing the trending audio, lately I've found that it's super hit or miss, but what's been more reliable is using rock and metal songs. So I've shifted that a little. I mean, even just today, I'm not going to lie, I deleted a reel I did a couple of hours ago. It had a trending audio and it was going less than 100 likes in an hour. I'm like, all right. So I got discouraged, which you should never delete your reels. Like, I don't want anyone to take that away. Never delete what you post, but I did just because I was like, because my reel before that had a corn audio and that was blowing up. So I was like, let me just focus there. A little bit of vanity there. I didn't like the total views. So yeah, it's really picking and choosing, but I would say lean in first more on the rock and metal songs, a little lip syncing, but also situational. And then with the trending audios, it's so hit or miss. Don't be discouraged. There's so many great trending audios that are, I feel like are too easy. You know what I mean? And then there are some that after I post, I'm like, this was a stretch, but I thought yours was great. I'm not just saying that either. I thought that's a perfect example of like, I do that stuff all the time.
Oh, yay. Oh, good. I made some more. So thanks for the encouragement, man. I appreciate it. It's
absolutely
very human and very funny to be intimidated by it, but we're doing it. It's great.
Absolutely.
We like it. and it's fun.
Yeah, and it takes away from all the seriousness, right? Because I think rock and metal, we tackle such serious subjects, and it's for people, who, in my opinion, can be very introspective. So having the ability to laugh at ourselves or use maybe a really deep moment of a song for a funny life situation, it makes things a little more light. And I've lately been telling that to people in the comments. It's like, hey, like, this is for fun, like, take it easy, which never goes over well, but sometimes I have to engage. I've been getting fleeced, actually. I did a reel. It was the audio of Metal Lords. So that's a perfect trending audio example with a movie. I mean, it's not quite trending anymore, but in Metal Lords, they're listing all these bands. So you have a list of 1 through 19 bands. And as the audio goes, I put them in a rank 1 to 19. I put Metallica number 1 because they're my favorite band. And my goodness, still, I mean, it's cracked over 100K views, which is awesome. But with that, again, comes so many haters of, you've never listened to metal before. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're a Chad, which I've been called a Chad a lot just from that reel. I'm like, my name is Chris. So it's just, you really can't please them all. And I feel like when your reels do blow up, unfortunately, again, you get the good. I think the good side that you get are the follows, and the bad side you get are the, believe it or not, the comments.
That's so interesting. And that also kind of like brings up another, thing we can talk about that I run into a lot. And this isn't a bitch fest. This is happy, guys. I'm not bitching, but I think it is so weird. This is just like one other thing I found, through posting more reels, like in the past few weeks. And this has really been like a thing, an issue like people have had with me forever. The fact that I exist, the fact that I'm like super girly or whatever. And it's just like, people are very weird in the way that they think like a metalhead should be this way and they can't be this way. And that's something like people have always really done to me. And I've never really cared, but I'm just like, why do you think it's this and not this? That's always been so weird to me. Like, why can't I like Shania Twain, and Hatebreed at the same time? Like, it's so weird. And all rock and metal musicians, like, they like some of that music, but mostly they listen to hip hop and chill out music. And like, I know like hardcore bands, and they don't listen to hardcore. They listen to like Sunny Day Real Estate. Like, they just listen to chill stuff. And that's just the truth. So it's so funny when they come for you, or like, if I like post that I like something country or pop or something like that, they really do come for you. It's so interesting. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And I forgot, I think it was actually the guitarist of Nickelback who said this about metal fans, is we're very protective of the genre. And therefore, like, as soon as someone might, like, if they suspect someone's poking fun or like referencing another genre, they get very defensive. And I think we need to move past that, especially because metal specifically is gaining a ton of traction. You can see it in the numbers, again, going back to data, right? It's there. It's gaining popularity. It's slow. And at the same time, we never want to be like super popular, right? So I'm totally with you. I love a variety of bands. The reality is, like, I personally really dislike modern pop for the most part. Having said that, I did see Coldplay this year. It was one of my favorite shows. So, I've gone all over, and I've hinted at that on my page. I'm actually surprised. I think I've done at least 2 Nickelback reels this year, and they went over like great. People were like, yeah, you know what? Nickelback's not bad. I was like, all right, we're making progress. This is exciting.
Well, and just kind of listening to you, and we're going to drop this and get more positive in a second. We're like, I kind of feel like this is just like kind of bash on metalhead time. And I'm like, I don't want to do that at all. We love metal. But one other,
they're the best.
They are. I love my people. I'm having a flashback right now listening to you talk back to my interview with Andy James from Five Finger Death Punch. And Five Finger Death Punch, you know, Metallica, Nickelback, those are like the three bands that get like all the hate in the entire world. And it's insane because they're like, you go to any show and it's like 60, 70,000 people or 20,000 people or 40,000 people. Like, you know, in every city they go to, they are the number 2 band, according to numbers and data. You're a data guy. According to numbers, they're the number 2 band in the world behind Metallica. So, you know, it's undeniable. And I've always really loved their music. And, you know, since their first album, I was arguing with people in the rock metal bar I went to, Reno's and Deep Ellum. Every time it would come on, people would be like, oh, it sucks. And I was like, why? It's great. What's wrong with you? But I was just kind of getting that vibe. Like, it's a little punishing, you know, the social media world. And I remember Andy talking about it, and he just went on and talked about it for a really long time. Like, I had my editor edit out like 10 minutes of it because it just, you know, they get so much hate. It's horrible. It really is.
Yeah. And I think from a combination of sources, I've kind of come up with this theory in my head. My theory is, or first, my question was, how come when hip hop or pop artists make it big, people are really, really happy about it? They're stoked, right? And it's never they sold out. You've never heard that about it, especially like a rap artist, right? Yet with metal or rock artists, you know, people say that, oh, they sold out. They're not as hardcore as they used to be. So I think the reason is, first of all, I think it comes down to lyrical subject matter, where in pop culture, you do hear a lot of references to money and making it. You know, at the end of the day, aren't we all, you know, so many of us have careers. We want to provide, we want to make money. It's no secret. You hear that less in rock and metal. You hear about more struggling. So now once these bands, they make it, quote unquote, they're no longer struggling and they're performing these songs. People are like, oh, they've gone soft. Like, they sold out. Now they have money. It's like, don't you want your favorite bands to make a living, to keep making music for you? Right. And I think a lot of people do recognize that, but there's still this like niche group who's like mad. They're like, oh yeah, they were good 3 albums ago. It's like when they were like all living together in a van. You know, they can still make great music. And again, I just think it has to do with the lyrical themes where, you know, bands starting out don't really talk about getting famous or like making their big bucks. They talk about the struggle. So once the struggle's over and they've made it, and, you know, they're like wearing a Rolex on stage, some people scoff at that. I'm like, no, you should be happy. You also helped bring them there too by listening, being a fan.
Absolutely. And that's so funny. I know you saw the reel I posted earlier today. I don't know if you saw any of the comments. Did you?
I did not.
Good for you. Okay. So there's this guy. He's a big deal in metal. He's written for all these magazines. He's very famous, you know, very well-renowned critic, and has done a lot and does a lot. And he came in to like troll my reel that I posted, like, yay, Pantera. But yeah, I was safe. I didn't even use pictures of the new lineup. I used pictures of Pantera albums because that's undeniable. And I just want everyone to be happy. And how can you not be happy with the Pantera album? Yeah, no, this dude was like, let's read it, shall we?
Oh, I'm very curious because I didn't find anything controversial about that one.
Oh yeah. He said, is it possible to take this gift back to the store? I think it's broken. And I'm just like, okay. Then I said, too much critic, not enough fan. He said hilarious, gave me a clown emoji, which like I always take up for myself. I was like, nah, no clown emoji there. So I kept on going with it. And I was like, you clown emoji me? Both. And he said, Pantera is my second favorite metal band of all time. You can be a fan and still think this is whack, I assure you. And then I was like, well, all states agreed to it. So Vinny and Dime's estates, they said yes, they wanted it to happen. And you have Charlie and you have Zach. Like, what about this is bad? And then who's like then he kind of backed down and was like, oh, well, my debates like aren't for Instagram. And I was like, okay. So I DM'd him and I was like, why do you think that? And he said, he did say the tuning was different from Dimes. And that's what he didn't like about it. So I was like, okay, cool. So I'm besties with Zach Wild's guitar tech. I have been for like 10 years. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to mention you anything, but I'm going to go ask him. Like, I want to know about this. And he was like, maybe don't go to the people who make money off of this. I think and he said, I think it's immoral. And I was like, why would you not want your metal heroes to make a shit ton of money? Like, they already built Pantera, like it's there. And I specifically never got to see Pantera. So this is the first time I ever get to like see Pantera like as much as it will be. But I was in Vegas like a month or two ago, and I was dragged to this awful DJ set in this awful club that I hated. And I was being supportive, and there were just like 20-year-old children running around everywhere. And I usually, I'm pretty well taken care of when I get shows. And I left one area to go buy a drink. And then the guy didn't want to let me back into the area that I was because he wanted me to like pay an extra like $200 for a wristband to pay for where I was. All for this like stupid DJ, or great DJ, whatever. Good for you. But I was miserable. I was so over it. Like, and people were paying like thousands of dollars to be at this club to watch this dude on his laptop DJ. And I was like, I want metalheads to make more money. And like, why would you not want your metal heroes? If it's a payday, awesome. I'm so happy for you. And if he said Pantera was like his number 2 band, of all time. And I was like, why wouldn't you just automatically support Phil and be like, oh, Phil wants to do this? Like, I respect Phil. I thank him for what he has done for me in my life. Thank you for the music. Happy for you. You have my support. And then it made me think about like, okay, well, he's a critic. And I was like, what is the point of being a critic? If like something honestly is like great, you're hating on it for no reason. And then I just like started spiraling in my head of like the entire point of being a music critic. And I'm like, do we even need music critics? Like, shouldn't just people like spread positivity into the world? And if you like it, great, good for you. So I don't know. I was just kind of spiraling, and he did kind of go like, well, if you want to have me on your show, we can talk about it. And I'm like, great. I want to have him on. I want to have Doc Coyle on because Doc from Bad Wolves had him on previously. So I'm like the happy optimist who wants to like love everyone and support everyone. Doc is like in a band and supportive, and I think he would be on board for it. And he's in a band, and he's a musician. So I feel like he would have a great, great things to add to the conversation. Then we have this guy who thinks it's an abomination to metal, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only way it would have been an abomination would be if all the estates didn't agree. Or right. I think then that would be bad if it went against wishes. But
yeah,
I'm with you. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. And you know what? You never know if there is a tuning difference. Could that be, adjusting to Phil's voice with age? Right. I don't know. I think what they're doing is really a good thing. It's funny. What you reminded me of, like, not tuning my own horn, but probably my favorite reel I did this year that I thought would flop, but actually did really well was walking into a non-rock or metal show and realizing, the less heavy the music, a lot less nice the people are. And so what you just described fits exactly into that. And the comment section there, if you haven't looked, I'm not gonna lie, there's a ton because the reach went really well. But some of the stories,
50,000 I saw. Sorry to cut you off. But yeah, I was looking at it, like, yeah, I think it was at 50,000 views so far.
I think that one passed it, believe it or not. I think it's pinned at I think it's pinned to the top of my profile. And I'm not saying that as a flex. I'm saying it because
I looked at it. We are, oh yeah. So, oh no. See, this is why your account is so massive and it's hilarious. I'm so happy for you. This is incredible. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. No. It's 49,747 likes with, 483,712 plays. No big deal. I mean, undeniable. That is so fucking cool. It's just so awesome that we're talking. And I'm so glad to be talking to you because another thing about metal, and I know I cut you off, we'll go back to it. This is very exciting for me. Obviously, I keep cutting you off.
No, same here. I'm equally as excited.
There's also a stigma, I think, about social media in metal, where a lot of metal musicians I know are like, nah, like they have a little bit of a stigma about doing it. Like one of my friends in a really big band, I help him with his social media and he hates it. And like what modern social media is, he can't, and he's like, nah, not for me, and that's just, he just doesn't want to because it's like silly to him. But views like that are just insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Like, I feel like something that artists are doing are actually making humorous or trending audios to expand their band. And I think if it comes natural, you should do it. And if it doesn't, there are other ways to get your name out there. And maybe that is, like reaching out to a larger account saying, hey, like, I know it's tough because I feel like they get sent a lot, but hey, we just released a single, can we put in your story or can you post it as a video? That's like that annoying legwork that I think they have to go through. But yeah, if it's not natural, to like do that. But I have seen like, I forgot what page. There's a page that they're a band, but everything they post is a reel, but it's not their own reels. I know because one of mine was on there, but it's a band page. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. You're getting your name out there. But when I go to your page, I also don't see any of your music. So it's a little confusing.
You were talking about going to a non-rock or metal show and people were more intense at that than they would be typically at a metal show. So you were talking about the comments down below. What were some good horror stories from that that people shared with you?
So the most recent one I saw, and I just scroll through it and laugh. And, sometimes they're not funny, but I think the one that I saw recently, they said they had less bruises at a Cannibal Corpse show than when they saw the Steve Miller Band.
That's funny.
It's crazy.
Super funny. Well, and talk about, I think that's a great segue into Cannibal Corpse. I went to that show. It was all sold out. I found out about it a day before. I didn't know anyone on the tour. So I was like, I can do this. I used to do this all the time. I'll just show up and find someone to walk me in, but I haven't done it in years and I haven't had to. I was like, I can do this. And I did it. And I found someone to walk me in. I was like, cool, but I'm not backstage. And at this venue, it was emos. No, not emos. It was Empire. And unless you are backstage or right in the front, you can't see anything. It's like, can't see anything. I was like, wouldn't that be funny if I went in the crowd? And I went in the crowd and it was a crazy push pit, but it was fine. Code Orange I went to and I posted about it and made some reels about it. Like the huge, big, massive bruises. Like I got sucked in and I really got rocked at that show. It was like 8 months ago. I'm still talking about it. But Cannibal Corpse was actually really lovely. To be funny.
It's funny how that works. I got destroyed in a Meshuggah mosh pit this year when they were in New York City. And the people were great. It was just very big guys. And, it's one of those, it was a Sunday. So I had a nice Sunday fun day. And one of my buddies is great at moshing, just because he's a very strong guy, but he knows the etiquette, he knows like the rules about it. Nothing stupid.
Not trying to kill anyone.
Yeah. Your body checking, but oh my gosh, I think for 2 weeks between the headbanging And that mosh pit, like an indefinite hiatus from moshing for me. But again, the sweetest people. I've had so many times of, especially early days, like anytime I've fallen, I've never got trampled, been picked up. I've lost a shoe. I've lost a watch. I've dropped glasses before. They're just the sweetest. They're the sweetest people at shows. And it's funny because it transforms. If people only think of metalheads in the comment sections, they might get a totally different read than metalheads at shows. They're just the sweetest. And anytime I've had an issue, it's been at a non-metal show. The heavier the shows, the nicer and just more friendly the people have been. And then I even like a Taking Back Sunday show, just rude people, like no concert etiquette, bumping into like people much shorter than them, like nudging over women and stuff. And I'm like, what happened to the tap on the shoulder and saying, excuse me? Like you can get to the front, but like you're pushing people like a buffoon. Like it's just so interesting. The different etiquette. It surprised me too. And most of the comments in that reel attest to that. There are some people who are defensive and they're like, no, metal shows are actually the worst. And I literally just say, look at the stories in these comments. It's not the case.
Yeah. Do they go to metal shows though? Like that would be my question. I'm like, who are you?
I think the most controversial has been like the most mixed opinions in the comment sections have been about country shows. I've either heard awesome things or a ton of horror stories. So I've never been to one. But I mean, I'm sure I'd have a good time. I like a few country artists, but yeah, that's the one that always keeps coming up. I've heard like even some people who work at venues have commented and said working country shows are the worst thing ever. And then other people have turned around and said the opposite. So I don't know if you have experience going to a country show.
I really like country. I love a lot of country. I mainly go to this honky tonk. That's really cute. And it's kind of like a time warp in town. Like every time I go out, it's on the east side of town. And I always go hit it on my way home because I just think it's adorable and romantic and sweet. And it's like a movie. And they have these big, giant red velvet curtains with like lights up. And it's just this little stage. And this is where everyone comes to do their like incredible country dancing, the twirl dancing. What's it called? Mm-hmm. Two-stepping. Yeah. Everyone. And they're just like so good at it. And I sit in the corner because I always love to get a good spot. There's a perfect corner in between. I get right here. The stage is right here. And then the dance floor is right here. I don't dance. I don't like to. It gives me anxiety. But I just love to watch them twirl and dip each other. And it is like a time warp. And I feel like I'm in like the 1950s or 1960s. And it is the most precious thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So I love going to that. I do like a lot of country artists for sure, which might be shocking to people. Big admission on the podcast. But I'm curious to know like why people think country shows are dangerous. Is it because people are wasted? Racist?
Yeah, mostly that. From again, just from what I've read in the comments, they've said that people were that or like I've heard of like confrontations probably fueled by booze for sure. But I've also read a lot of things like I think someone said something like, "Are you kidding me? Have you ever been to a like a sweaty booze fueled like metal show? They're the worst." And I was like, it is sweaty and oftentimes boozy, but I feel like everyone's pretty nice about it. So there's definitely some funny BO comments, which I think if I didn't pin it, I should have. And I just put a PSA. I was like, guys, everyone make sure wear deodorant before you go to a show.
So I've actually been talking about that. That's funny. So it was the worst. So Soulfly shows, I go to every single one of them. I'm besties with Richie, and he's always selling their merch. So it's Max's son, and he's in the band Insight.
That's
and
awesome.
I love him. I'm so happy to see him. So like I always go to see Richie, yay, and Soulfly, yay. Those shows are the smelliest shows I have ever been to in my entire life. And I was like, it was just throughout the entire venue. And there was nowhere to go. And I was just like, oh, what do I do? Like, how do I get out of it? I was talking about that for a while. Like, there are some people who do not wear deodorant, and they really need to be. So, especially, I will say at Soulfly shows, y'all have to do it differently. Like, please stop.
I have not been to a Soulfly show, and now I'm weirdly curious to go to one. Not just because they're a great band, but to see if that's true in the New York City area, to see if it carries over.
Well, so I've seen them in a bunch of different cities, and I did like a reality TV show, didn't get picked up, actually with Soulfly in Portland, and it wasn't an issue there. But maybe it's just the Texas crowd now that I think about it. Maybe it's just the Texans in Austin, Texas who go to Soulfly shows. Y'all need to do better. Please do better.
It's got to be a tested theory for sure. I've definitely moved to a different spot of the venue with a worse view to avoid BO 100%, because I can't do that for an hour and a half. Just can't make it.
Yeah, not great. Okay, so you said you're in the New York area?
Yep.
Okay, so you are in the New York area. I love New York. What are some of your favorite venues to hang out at, and what are some of your favorite bands?
Oh, well, there's so many. I guess if you're not familiar with the area, there's so many small venues in New York City, which I love. I'm a small venue person. I go to a festival every year usually. I do some stadium shows, like I just saw Rammstein. But I love the small venues. So Irving Plaza is one of my favorites. It's forget what part technically of Manhattan it's in, but it's very, very convenient for me. I just jump on a ferry and I'm basically there. There's Hammerstein Ballroom, which is gorgeous. It's where Meshuggah just was. PlayStation Theater, that's right by Times Square. It's awesome. It used to be Best Buy Theater, like probably 5-6 years ago. My number one venue, because it used to be where I went to school at Rutgers, is called Starland Ballroom. And that actually got wiped out by Hurricane Sandy way back in the day, probably 9 years ago now. And they rebuilt it. So it holds about 3,500 people. And what I love is it's basically surrounded by bars, and there's a top level. So if you don't want to be in the pit, you can still stand and you can see above everyone. But when you go to the bar, it's a giant mirror. So as you're waiting for your drink, the mirror shows the band like right there. So it's kind of like you can still watch. So yeah, I mean, bar proximity is super important. And we've had some crazy bands. Like one November, this was that way pre-COVID. We had Breaking Benjamin, Korn, and Volbeat all just show up there. Like why? Because it's small. It's in the middle of nowhere. I was most recently at Nickelback's album release party, which was literally at Starland Ballroom the day the album came out. Again, we were like, why in New Jersey did they pick this? But yeah, I have a ton of good memories there. But any ballroom or like anything that's standing in New York City, you don't just check the capacities. Most of them are so small. I saw and met Billy Howardell, and he literally performed in a place that couldn't hold more than 400 people. It was so intimate. I just love those shows. That's awesome. Also, sorry, honorable mention, the Stone Pony. It's in Asbury Park. It's an outdoor venue that's literally on the beach. That one is unreal.
Awesome. Well, I love that I've been to most of those, so that's cool.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah.
Have you been to Starland?
Yeah, I've been to Starland. I saw Seven Dust there.
Nice.
I used to hang out with them, and I was friends with their radio guy. And I just randomly showed up, and like he hooked me up for the show. And then it was very funny because there were like all these like radio execs and like record execs that they had to go hang out with. And then I was in that group. and they were all like, what are you doing here? Like, how are you back here? Like, it was like a very exclusive room. So they're used to seeing me in Texas. And then I randomly was in this like exact small thing. They walked in, they were like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Like, how'd you get in here? Kind of thing.
That's amazing.
It was super funny. They were like, why are you here? This is hilarious. And it super was. It was very funny. But yeah, I've been to Irving, PlayStation. I just really, I love men from New York and I love musicians from New York and I love New York. And usually every year I go hang out for like a month or like a month and a half or something like that. So I've been lucky to like catch really good shows and, you know,
there's
really fun to New York it up.
There's almost so like too many right now for me to keep up with, you know, like post COVID, because I actually just moved even closer to the city than I was before. But yeah, so many. Yeah. And I love the vibe, the concert vibe, like in terms of the fans at metal shows have always been great. I feel like the bands have awesome energy because, you know, it is New York. So they always comment on that, especially if they're not local. But yeah, so many, just so many. I've got to step up how many I'm going to, because right after the pandemic, I was going so often and it was just so expensive, but I'm starting to get the itch again. My last one was Nickelback and that was like 3 weeks ago. And to be honest, I was a little underwhelmed about the experience. Love the band. But a 13 song set in a small club wasn't what we expected. So I'm itching to get back out there.
What did you want in a small club?
You know, I was expecting, because the tickets were so expensive, just more songs. You know, they went through 13. They were obviously great songs. They played 2 new ones and then all the hits, which again, they sounded phenomenal. But you almost think with an album release party that maybe they'd play longer, maybe an encore. The show just felt incredibly quick. And, you know, for the money, we were a little bummed, but there's no denying they sounded phenomenal. The set list they picked was great, but I would have expected more like an hour and a half playing versus like an hour or less, you know?
Got it. So they must have like shorter, I guess they do have shorter songs because they're more structured and, you know,
they're in and out in 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah. So I was like 13, but I guess that would be only like an hour, not an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were all kind of waiting for the encore and then they were just like, it was done. So, and it was a Friday night too. So, you know, where everyone who had gotten there was, I think the crowd was expecting a little more. But yeah, they do sound phenomenal. I'll always love them. But that's just my 2 cents about that one. Yeah. Guys, play a longer set for the fans, especially like a deep cut would have been cool. But again, I'm a pretty big Nickelback fan, so not many people like deep cuts, but I would have loved something maybe a little more unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, 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 really got into them when I was in high school. I made like all my art projects like Nickelback themed. Like I would make them like band and music. Like I was in art class and I like made Nickelback art because it was easy and fun. Like the sun, you know, the bridge with the sun down. It's like that.
Yeah,
you know, album. Yeah, I would like.
I think that's the long road.
Yeah, I would make a lot of art kind of like look like that because I had to make something. So it's funny, but yeah, a deep cut would have been cool. Like I've been a long-time Nickelback fan for sure. That's super funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have a very funny Chad Kroeger story. Yeah, how much were the tickets? If I was listening, I would want to know. So I want to be the podcast host that asks the question. I would be wondering.
Yeah, no, totally. So tickets went up to $480. I got mine on TickPick and I got mine for $135 each after tax. So I got a crazy good deal.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, so I was pretty happy about that. I had some friends who couldn't come because the tickets did go up so high. Mm-hmm. The face value, I forgot what they were, but yeah, I think I took advantage. I think someone, because this was third party that I got, they were just looking to get rid of them. So I got pretty lucky in that scenario. I've definitely paid a lot more for a show. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. And the whole like Taylor Swift ticket thing, there's so much like money in the world and some people will pay it, you know, like Just be happy for people. I don't care. Like, I don't understand why like people are pissed. Like, why wouldn't you want our favorite artist to make a shit ton of money? Like, I would. You know,
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of money to be made. And they're not out there, you know, setting tickets that high or anything. But just coming back to like, I want my favorite artist to like make a really good living.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's a lot of trust that was placed in Ticketmaster's hands. And the fact that we'll see if it's determined an official monopoly, but because they don't have a ton of competition, they can let, supply and demand, like if the demand is up and the supply is low, they can raise those prices and get away with it. It's not illegal. But the problem is there's no one competing with Ticketmaster who's coming in lower. And, so I think that's the struggle. And I personally think way too much trust has been put on Ticketmaster. I don't think it's a Taylor Swift error. I just think there needs to be another company that comes in and just makes it more competitively priced, or have just a different pricing structure maybe.
Yeah, so I just had a few more questions. I kind of wanted to go back around, ask a few more questions about like, just where you get your inspiration, because it is boundless and you're so good at it. I just want to ask one more time, like, where do you get your ideas for your content? Because you're such a hot creator. Like, you're such a tastemaker, influencer, creator. Do you have any insight about like where you get your ideas?
So I have notes on my phone. So anytime, like if I'm working my day job, sometimes these ideas just pop into my head. I'll be honest, a lot of times scrolling through my Reels feed, and again, seeing a trending audio or seeing a take on something, I'm like, well, what if I spin it this way, for my audience, instead of like just a very general thing. So yeah, through those. So again, sometimes it's literally like it'll just pop in my head and I'll just write it into my notes. What I do is I have a check, like where there's like the check marks in your Apple phone. So once you do it, click it off, check, it's done. I want to say I use less than 10% of my ideas, maybe 5%. So I've gotten in the habit of, even if I don't think it's a good idea in the moment, write it down. It's its own bullet point. If you never revisit it again, whatever. But sometimes, again, like that one about the less heavy the crowd is, that was something that for months I kept putting on the back burner. I was like, you know what, I'm going to use, that was a trending audio. And I was hanging out with my brother and I was hungover and I was like, I need to do a reel. I was like, let me just do this one. I'll put a background up. I'll look around confused to this chaotic audio, and it blew up, so whatever ideas you have, just write them down no matter what. And also I'd say keep it relatable to your life, because if it's relatable to you, it probably will be to other people, especially, in our community. We're an eclectic group, but we all go through the same stuff. So I started making ones that had a lot to do with like being in the workplace and being a metalhead, and like kind of like what's that like, because I've experienced that. So again, just write everything down and keep it relatable, and not to sound like Metallica, but how they said they make music for themselves. I laugh at the reels they make. The only thing I would change is I wish I wasn't in them, but the concepts, like there's somewhere I'm pressing post and I'm laughing. I'm like, this one is amazing. And it's like my worst one of the month, so do what you enjoy too, because that'll make it more, bearable as you're, because it definitely gets monotonous, being like, what am I posting today?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to ask you, why did you start the account? Like, what made you want to start the account in the first place? Like, what's your goal? Is that changing? Has that changed for you at all?
It's changed so much. So when I made this, I started in March 2019. I started getting metal memes come up on my personal page. And I love the one where it was, here's like the China symbol. And then it was, I think the kid from, Avengers. And he says, we're all going to die. And I thought that was so funny. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll take a stab at making memes. I had no idea, like total boomer when it comes to like that stuff. So I looked into like apps, and it started as a for fun BS meme account. And it started picking up steam. And what inspired me was, for whatever reason, maybe like my positive take on things, a community started to build. And that's when I realized it wasn't just Rock Metal Fan Struggles, it was Rock Metal Fan Nation. We had built this group and this community together, and it started building from there. I started doing album song ranks and reviews in my stories, which got a ton of traction, tournaments, and just opening up dialogue. And I was also inspired because I'd still seen accounts like Loudwire who, there's just so many like elitist or like gatekeeper comments. And I was noticing there weren't that many on my memes. So I was like, this is awesome. Like we're more than that, not to say that the rock metal fan community is better, but it's just a lot of nice people started it. So they're the reason, like the early people who started following are the reason I kept doing it. And then I was like, you know what, this is getting more serious. Maybe I'll get some t-shirts and I'll start giving them away. Maybe I'll sell them, and it took off from there. And then, life happened. And again, it kind of started going downhill. My posts weren't as much, and I was a little discouraged by my page not growing. So I wanted to do something different. And that's when the reels came in and the opportunities through, Instagram bonuses happened. And, it's great. It's been wild, and it's always changing too. So I don't know what the next few years hold. I mean, I know like what my dream would be years down the line. I don't know if that would ever happen, but for now, I'm just trying to have fun. I'm also trying not to be like, I really want to hit 100K. So I'm like staring at that way too often. I know it's just a number, but again, it's the people that have been there along the way make RMFN what it is. And it's genuinely delightful. And it's my favorite part of like the work I do. It's great. And, I've met people like yourself too through it. It's such a great community. As much as we've talked about some of the trolls out there, there's literally no other better community. And that's why I'm still doing my thing, still making a fool out of myself, and entertaining people along the way.
Awesome. I love that. And are there any really cool things that like have happened because of your account? Like, have you met any like fun people? Have you like gotten anything? When you said the Nickelback record release, I thought you got invited to it.
No,
I just assumed. I was like, damn, he's got it like that. That's awesome. You got invited to it for free. Have you gotten anything fun like that?
Yeah, so made pretty good friends with the members of Saving Abel. I forgot how that came about. I think I literally just DM'd them and said, hey, would love to interview you guys since they got their lead singer, Jared Weeks back. Mm-hmm. Then I made a reel with an audio from Billy Howardell from The Perfect Circle with his audio. And someone from his team reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to have you come to a show, like VIP. And I was like, what the hell? They're like, where are you? I was like, New York area. So not only got to go to that show for free, but got to meet the band. They were sweethearts, did like a little after party thing. So that's been it from now. I mean, I've gotten some cool interactions. But to be honest, I haven't really actively gone out of my way to pursue them. I feel like I'm just so in touch with the fans. There's a combination. I'm in touch with the fans and making that relatable content. And also when it comes to musicians, I still like worship them. So I'm like, I'm not worthy of like being like around you guys. Like I'm making reels. I'm not making like podcasts or like premium content. So who knows what'll happen? I have had some cool partnerships with most recently the merch company, Puck Hockey, who sends me some gear, and like I had like a promo code through them. So I think there's stuff that'll happen along the way, but it's already been really cool meeting people. And I have been spotted wearing my RMFN hat at a show, at a few shows now, at Rammstein and at Slipknot. Someone actually was like, hey, do you run Rock Metal Fan Nation? I was like, yes. So that was surreal. I was like, what the hell just happened? So that's always fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that feeling like when you get recognized is very fun. Very, very
yeah,
fun.
I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I think like when it happened to me, I just started laughing. It was like, oh my God, let's take a picture. And like we hung out. It's a really great feeling. That's awesome that you're getting the notoriety, and give yourself more credit. Like what you're
I
doing
appreciate
is
it.
the new wave of media. Like what you're doing, like the old way of media really doesn't exist. I mean, it exists. You know, there's music critics, ha ha ha, who write things, but people just, you know, a lot of times like don't take the time to read that or listen to it. You know, who knows? Like people do a podcast, but I think what you're doing is like some of the most relevant media that there is right now. So you should absolutely give yourself more credit. Like,
thank you. I
5 million
appreciate
more
that.
percent. Like you're really not just a meme account or anything like that. You're very relevant in the industry. And I think like more so than you give yourself credit for sure.
I'm very, very flattered to hear it. And, thank you. I think speaking of like new wave of media, I think at least what I've been doing inadvertently without knowing that it's part of the future is trying to start conversations through the content. You'll very rarely see me put a hard stance on something. And also just one more thing about like the content. One example was I put recently, probably, I think it was last Monday, when the new Metallica song came out. I had just posted a reel. I was like, this was going to be great. Then all of a sudden I see everything like Metallica, new album, new tour, new songs. So I was like, I need to stop what I'm doing and make some kind of reel with the song Lux Eterna playing, because for this limited time, I'm going to be at the top of this audio. When you press Lux Eterna in Instagram, there's no reels there. This is my opportunity to get there. So instead I posted something about everyone's reactions to it, good or bad. It worked. But at the same time, it facilitated conversations that are literally still going on. And good or bad, I think it's just important to talk and try to facilitate also like respectful conversations rather than you like Metallica, you suck. So if that's the new wave, is opening up dialogue, then I'm all for it. I do read, so I love reading album reviews, especially when I disagree with them, because it like makes my blood boil in a good way. I never comment though. I like to just read a piece and appreciate someone's opinion. That is kind of the downside of the content that I do, is because there's the comment button. You're always going to hear something, like good or bad. So there's definitely pros and cons about it, but I appreciate it. I'm trying to keep it relevant, keep it fresh. I don't think there's anything more fresh than speaking to these artists, the way you do. I think it's very important, and just understanding the background of their life, because when we used to nerd out about bands, I feel like we would like go through an internet deep dive, right? Like at least I would do that. I was like, I need to know their whole bio. But now with music, even easier to to get to, I feel like it's kind of lost a little. So just hearing more of their background, and their voice rather than just their songs, because they're human beings, right? I think is huge. And I think I'm sure it's gaining a lot of interest.
Thank you so much for that. And I think like my favorite part of my interviews is I've always, with when I first started doing press like a million years ago, I always just wanted to be able to like recognize and say thank you to like my favorite artists. And I've done that a million times over. But I think the funnest part about my interviews is just seeing people's personalities and their voices and stuff like that, and their sense of humor. And you really get a feel, for who they are, and you feel like you're hanging out with them. And I would say like that's my favorite part of doing the interviews that I do, that I really appreciate and I really enjoy, and I love them so much. Yeah.
That's a great skill, because I've seen like really funny interviews of really successful like artists who like are getting annoyed by the questions, right? Like because they're like so generic. So the fact that you're making it conversational for them, I mean, that's people are literally like living vicariously through you, right? Like as if they're having the conversation with them. So that's an incredible skill. I'll stick to the reels. You stick to, the awesome interviews, because I'm still in that like fanboy stage where like I couldn't, like, even when I was talking to Billy Howardell after his show, I was like, I've just got to tell you, the album 13th Step by A Perfect Circle means the world to me. Like, I'm like, and like, I didn't want to ramble, but I was like, I need to tell him how many times I've listened to this, so it's definitely an art that you're mastering.